this guy, Antonio, Giovanni, Franco, all about Italian men.
The pink pill is the pink pill now. Put your pinkies up now, up now, up. Live well to the extreme now. Put your pinkies up now, up now, up.
Hey, it's Pinky. You're on the Pink Pill YouTube channel. Be a love and like, share, and subscribe. Pinkies up.
Hey, it's Chris from the Pink Pill again, and welcome to part 2 of the Swirling Archetype series. We had a lot of fun with our first one where we kind of dissected Brad and what Brad represents. This time, Italian men. Let's talk about why we find them so fascinating. What I hear often, and also what I've experienced in going to Italy myself, is these men have a special blend of masculinity and refinement and sexiness and of emotional availability with their expressiveness and attractiveness to family and tradition that really does make them sort of really intriguing. They are very intriguing to me. I love how clannish and familial they are. I love how much they love their food and their wine. They're just fun. And let's talk about why many of us want to date them. And you also want to make sure that you stick around to the end because I have a surprise for you. I actually interviewed a 100% Italian man who gave his perspective on dating and particularly dating Black women. Tell the ladies a little bit about you.
Well, I was born in St. Louis, and which is a point of big. I already fucked it up.
It's okay. You do not want to miss what he had to say because we went in really deep. We weren't just fluffy. We kind of talked about some of the touchy subjects that you guys are all wondering about that I absolutely know that you would want me to ask. So make sure that you watch to the end because it was a great conversation. But back to the archetype. Giovanni, Antonio, Franco. Who is he? What is the ideal Italian archetype? What is it that goes through our mind when we think about dating Italian men? Let's take a look. The subject of this archetype is Giovanni Rossi, age 32, occupation architect. Giovanni Rossi was born and raised in the vibrant city of New York, a proud Italian American who embodies the perfect blend of modern sophistication and old world charm. With roots tracing back to Napoli, Italy, Giovanni grew up immersed in the rich traditions and close-knit values of his Italian heritage. Giovanni stands at 6 feet tall with a well-built athletic physique. His warm hazel eyes are framed by his strong jawline, and his tousled dark hair adds a touch of casual allure. Giovanni takes pride in his appearance, often seen in well-tailored suits that highlight his confident and stylish demeanor. Giovanni's Italian roots manifest in his passionate and expressive nature, whether discussing his work, sharing stories from his upbringing, or expressing his feelings. Giovanni is animated and genuine. Family holds a special place in Giovanni's heart. Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations, and regular gatherings with his large Italian family are non-negotiable traditions that he cherishes deeply. Giovanni is a true romantic. He believes in grand gestures, surprises, and the power of love. From planning intimate dinners to spontaneous getaways, he enjoys creating memorable moments. As an architect, Giovanni has taken a keen eye for design and aesthetics. He appreciates art, music, and literature, and often channels his creativity into his work, infusing his projects with a unique and thoughtful touch. He's also a social butterfly who effortlessly connects with people. His outgoing nature and charisma make him the life of the party, and he's always up for new experiences and meeting new people. He's ambitious in his career pursuits. As an accomplished architect, he is dedicated to creating spaces that tell a story and leave a lasting impact. His drive reflects not only his professional life, but also in his personal relationships. Growing up with his nonna, who mastered the art of Italian cuisine, Giovanni is a culinary enthusiast. He enjoys experimenting with recipes, and his pasta-making skills are second to none. Giovanni is a passionate sports fan, especially when it comes to soccer. Whether he's cheering for his favorite team or engaging in friendly banter with friends over a game, sports play a significant role in his life. And when it comes to romance, Giovanni is attracted to individuals who appreciate culture, value family, and share a zest for life. A romantic partner who enjoys good food, appreciates art, and can keep up with his energetic lifestyle would likely capture his heart. So, do you have what it takes to date a Giovanni? Do you have traditional values, like to cook, love big family gatherings, expressive and romantic? You just might be his type. Let's do a little quick history about Italians in America. According to Wikipedia, all-knowing Wikipedia, New York has the largest population of Italian Americans in the United States, as well as North America, many of whom inhabit ethnic enclaves in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. New York is home to the third largest Italian population outside of Italy, behind Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. Over 2.6 million Italian and Italian Americans live in the greater New York area, with about 800,000 living within one of 5 New York City boroughs. This makes Italian Americans the largest ethnic group in the New York metro area. And how long have they been coming to the United States? Well, Wikipedia has an answer for that too. The first Italian to reside in New York was Pietro Cesare Alberti, a Venetian seaman who in 1635 settled in the Dutch colony of New Amsterdam that would eventually become New York. The largest wave of Italian immigration to the United States took place in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Between 1820 and 1978, 5.3 million Italians immigrated to the United States, including over 2 million between 1900 and 1910. And this is where my friend Frank's story in America began. Franco. Should I call you Franco or should I call you Frank? What do people call you?
Well, my actual given name is Frank, named after my grandfather, Francesco Luigi. I named my daughter Francesca in his honor and my own. And so, yeah, Frank's fine.
So, and you're pretty Italian, like 100%.
100% Italian. I have dual citizenship. My father's side is from Sicily in the south, and mom's side is from Lombardia up north. So I'm kind of a mixed Italian.
Yeah, but yeah, you're mixed with North Italian and Southern, and that actually is significant, especially because we're having this discussion about what it possibly could be like for Black women to date Italian American men. We can also we'll talk a little bit later about dating them from the actual country. But I see a lot of similarities between, in some ways, what Black people have gone through and what Italians have gone through. Also issues related to colorism. So you have people in the northern part of Italy that are whiter and lighter skinned, and you have people in the southern and that are darker skinned. And even within this, richness of everybody's Italian, there's still that delineation between the skin color. So was there a significant amount of discrimination that your parents experienced when they came to the U.S.? Or were they immigrants, or were they second generation?
They were second generation. My grandparents, my four grandparents all came over in the 20s through Ellis Island, on a boat, a very long ride.
Did they know any English?
They didn't know any English.
Wow.
They didn't know any English at the time, yeah. And that was, common. The people that immigrate to America are struggling in their home country, otherwise they wouldn't come. So, you'll find that the Italians that are here in America are, a slightly different breed than some of the successful Italians that have been and remained in Italy for generations, because they were doing well there. They were well educated. Most of the people that came over didn't. They were coming to strike a bargain with a new land where there is possibilities and shooting for the American dream. And yes, there was a lot of discrimination at the time in the 20s and 30s against Italians as immigrants coming over. So much so that my grandparents didn't teach my parents Italian. They wanted them to fit in. They gave them American names. My dad's actual name is Salvatore Onofri, but he went by Jim. My mom was Dolores, and she just went by D, because they really wanted more than anything for the kids to have a better life, and to do that they felt like they needed to have the kids integrate.
Yeah, and assimilate.
With the society.
And so it was no even speaking Italian, because I know that there's German families that did the same thing. They said, absolutely, you do not speak German outside of this house. We want you to learn English.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be completely assimilated. One thing that I can say about Black people, we didn't come here. I mean, yes, now we have immigration from various African countries, but they're not African American. Like, we were brought here for a specific purpose, and that was to, be slaves. Like, we worked for free for 400 years. And so we have we don't really have an immigrant experience. It's more like we were brokered here and we were brought here and making the best of it. So we have it, while we are minorities, we're not immigrants. But there's been some similarities. One thing that I will say, though, is that as a community, there hasn't been this, I think there's this intrinsic thing where we don't want to assimilate. We don't want to lose that part of ourselves. Like, it's very much a rebelliousness. Like, I'm going to keep it Black. And it can be, some of that can be productive and some of it can be negative. But to assimilate as a Black person is almost seen as, oh, you want me to be like white person. You want me to be like white people. But in truth, that was kind of like how your parents had to be. They had to assimilate into the dominant white American society, because shockingly enough, and I didn't know this until a few years ago, that Italians I think that they were trying to classify race by Northern and Southern Italian in the United States. Did you know that? That they were trying to delineate between Italians in the North and in the South, and making you guys more like Black people, or some other minority?
Sure.
Not white?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's always been the case. It's just an easy identifier based on skin color. It's something you can spot from a distance, right?
Yes.
And, traditionally in kind of every culture I can think of, the Southerners from that culture are darker skinned and less productive. Less productive because they sit in the sun and it gets hot in the afternoon.
Okay, can we entertain that for just a second? Because I have this theory, and this may make people mad, but there is this theory, it's not mine, but when I heard it, it clicked. is there any southern hemispheric continents, countries that really thrive where they're like considered first world? It seems like all of the continents where there's plenty of sun, where there's enough rain, where you can reach up and pick a mango, reach down and pull out a fish, that there's not a lot of innovation. Like there's not that hunger to, you know, make sure that there's enough, because it's like Eden, right?
Yeah.
So there's not that striving. So so tell me more about that.
It's the same in Italy. It's the land is more fertile down south. Life is easier in a lot of ways for those reasons. Well, at least certainly it was kind of before the Industrial Revolution, you know, changed everything. And so they don't have the hunger in their belly to like work and build buildings. They don't need to. The weather's nicer. They live less in their heads, you know, where the Germanic cultures and the Northerners have to stay inside for these long winters and be in a completely different space. They have to build things to protect themselves and really have to work hard to get something to grow. So they're, you know, consequently more innovative, perhaps. You know, on the one hand. On the other hand, you know, Italy itself is one of the southernmost countries on the continent, right? And it is super productive. It's super creative, you know, in terms of style, automobiles, food product, etc.
That is true.
They've always, you know, been leading.
Art, music.
Yeah, art, music. They're very, very creative. Not known necessarily for precision machine work. Like when you want that, you go to Germany.
You go to the Germans, yes.
Go to the Germans, yeah. You want good food? Get out of Germany.
Exactly. Go down south. Further south you go, the better food it gets. Well, I don't know. I heard North Italian food is really good too. But that poses an interesting question. Do you think the men, so if as a black woman, and you know, you're on the dating apps, you're on Bumble and Tinder and all this other stuff, and you catch the eye of a black woman, and she catches it. Is there a different vibe between, say, a Northern Italian man versus a Sicilian man like yourself? Like, do you find that you have just that general carryover of a more laid back, like, you know, I don't need to squirrel all these nuts away. Like it'll eventually, you know.
Yeah, definitely. There's a definitive difference between a Milanese from Milan and a Palermitano from Palermo, Sicily. I mean, you could spot them. You know, two men walk into a room, I could tell you
which
who's
one
who in a minute by everything, their demeanor, skin color likely, and just their overall attitude in life. Definitely the Southern Italians are more sensual, more kind of in their bodies, less intellectual. And
more feeling. I think that's probably why there might be some kind of symbiosis, I think, between blacks and particularly
the
Southern
Italians.
Italian.
Oh yeah,
but just be careful, because it's like we don't want to, because we're always talking about like, oh, do not get with some lazy bum who's like, oh, you know, I'll work tomorrow. Just so everybody knows though that you have like how many degrees and you used to do, and you're Southern Italian, so we don't want to put the stereotype out there, but tell people a little bit about.
Yeah, I'm, you know, I don't know. It's all relative. I was going to say overeducated, maybe not. But I was a good student, loved it, you know, studied intellectual history in Europe, studied languages. I speak 4 languages, though, and, you know, from English being pretty good down Italian,
it better be
French,
pretty good.
Spanish. So yeah, I studied a lot, but you know that's not exclusive to Northerners. There are lots of great poets and great writers and creative people from the South. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit, it gets glazed over and says, "Oh, that's the way they are." Mm-hmm. And of course, we know that's not true. It's not true within any culture, Black culture,
right.
Italian culture. There's always standouts
exactly.
and
exactly.
laggards.
Yeah. So for a traditional Italian American family, girlfriend shows up for the first time, what might she expect to experience?
Well, it's all about family, first of all. The family, the nuclear family, the dedication and loyalty to family is unquestioned throughout the Italian culture. I would say perhaps even more so in the South. It gets thicker and thicker, a little more tribal almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's like family first, before all else, and it falls a little more apart when you start to head north and people become more intellectual. Mm-hmm. They start to fractional, kind of objectify people, and in southern Italy it just wouldn't happen. So. It'd be so when a woman comes over to meet the family for the first time, it's food and family and discussions about how we as a clan sort of operate together, and everybody's always got each other's back.
And is that something that they're going to have to just sort of grow into? I mean, but that's a lot in Black families as well. Like there's a lot of and on my side of the family too, like we'll get together, big clan, it's all about the family. And when you go in, you have to kind of have a level of respect and understanding of the general theme of like, you're going to see 20 cousins and they're all your cousins. It's not going to be like, this, because it's like, everybody's just related. You haven't seen them in 20 years and mm-hmm. It's still family. So we do have that same thing here. So that's something I think that's a good similarity. But I think what the ladies are want to know is she going to have to learn how to cook Italian food? That's what we want to know. Like, and how good does it have to be?
The short answer is yes, you
okay.
will.
Okay.
And it better be good. Because Italians won't eat it. I've seen them just go, no.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find that just in general, Italian men are more traditional? Like they're looking for somebody who is like nurturing, feminine, cooked, like very earth mothery type energy?
Yeah. I would definitely say that. There's a part of me as a modern man that's been trying to fight my essential nature in that way. And at the end of the day, I do like tradition, I do like well-defined roles within the family, that the man goes out and he's the breadwinner and goes hunting all day and drags home the meat and the bread, and the mama bear is there taking care of the kidlets, mm-hmm. and it smells good, and you come into a soft landing and a nurturing nest, and it's incredibly empowering as a man who's out there taking risks all day, if that's the way the setup is.
You hear that, ladies? So those of you who are looking for a traditional man, check out these Italian men. All right, but let's talk about the not so good, because we've talked about, yes, that there's, obviously they're family oriented, very much emotional and creative and passionate and all of this stuff. But I heard some stuff about y'all. I've heard some, and they're going to ask. The ladies are gonna ask me about this. So you guys have a bad reputation of being cheaters. You guys have a reputation. What do you think about that?
I don't know quite what to think about it. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if
is there like a wink and a nod, kind of, just in general? I'm not trying to put you on a hot seat, but like just in general, is there kind of a wink and a nod between the men, and how do they rationalize it? Because I'm going to just come out and say it, that there is. I've seen too many mob movies. I know y'all be cheating. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You guys will have whole double lives, if I'm to believe these mob movies, whole double lives where you guys are having the little woman taken care of at home, and then you've got your little hot number with the big and the blonde and the
You've been watching too much of Sopranos, it sounds like.
maybe, but it goes as far as The Godfather too.
You know, I'd be curious to look at the actual statistics and see if indeed Italian men are, more cheaters or not. We were just talking about the tightly defined roles, and that they can be a blessing and they can be a curse for a lot of the reasons that we talked about. I makes me wonder if sort of going out for a man if a woman's tied to the kitchen and taking care of the kids and lets herself go, and a man, who is kind of the typical alpha man, is out there swinging the bat every day and running around and stressed out and, improving his mind and all as a result because he's challenging himself every day, where the woman isn't, there's going to be a growing apart. And the man's going to come home and find that home to be nurturing maybe, but not stimulating enough, and he goes out and gets his needs met elsewhere. Is that more true in Italian culture than others? I don't know. I know that they definitely have a reputation for it. Europe in general, I think, is more tolerant than the U.S. The U.S., the initial, our forebears, the founders, were Puritans, Victorian Puritans, and had very tightly drawn lines around sex and marriage and that sort of thing. Anyway, so in Europe, it's a little more just sort of understood that's the case. It's part of human nature, and I know a lot of families over there that just choose to kind of ignore it and just say, well, that's the way it is. They just accept it,
And it's not like the men, I'm not saying that makes this okay, but the men still prioritize the family. They're not out there leaving,
right?
Their wife and
100%.
Children fatherless,
so
they can go run after. They're still very much
right. Yeah, and from what you've told me, black men have a similar reputation, but they leave.
They don't bother to marry. Only 35% of black people in general are married, and we have the highest out of wedlock rate. The highest it was I think at 73%. It was at 1.73. In the past 4 or 5 years, it's declined to around 68%, but it's still the highest. And so you have a lot of children being produced with families that have not even bothered to have that, standing up in front of family, promising to build a family together and be committed to each other. That's both ceremonial and legal. That's a step that's not even being taken. And for a lot of black women, if 68 or 70% of black children are born out of wedlock, the odds are pretty high that you could be one of them. So if you want to have a better odds, if you have only 35% of black people who are married in the first place, those odds are bad. You having a child being married, those odds are bad. It just makes sense to expand to see if men of other races and cultures that value, say, for example, what you said, marriage and family, that it's the center of everything, then that would be somebody that you should consider an option. Because yes, in our community, we have a huge issue with that. And so women who don't want to go down that path, and who are open to dating other men, and which I've been obviously the leader of this, at the forefront of having this discussion since 2010, a lot of Black women still are resistant to it. But the reason why I think series like this is important, because it's showing that there's still some similarities that you can find in other people who aren't necessarily part of your culture. Like, I love what you said about Italians. A lot of Black people are like that. Very, people who want to have that family, want to have that traditional lifestyle, then they should be looking to a Franco.
Well, perhaps. I mean, it occurs to me as you're talking that we can't underestimate the influence of the Catholic Church on Italian culture. That's a big difference between Black culture that doesn't have Catholicism exactly.
But we do have Baptists, like it's but
is it
it's
super
not
traditional? Because
it's supposed to be, but they let a lot of stuff slide.
The Catholics
a lot
are
of stuff.
super traditional. I mean, you get married in a church, you follow the rules, and then you have babies. And if you impregnate a woman out of wedlock, you get married before that baby's born. And you do right by her, and you stay in it, and blah blah blah. And that may be perhaps another a reason why, to the extent there is more sort of extramarital activity, it may be because of that. Because they, never really would have chosen each other in the first place. They got pregnant, and so you got to do the right thing, and maybe I don't know. I'd really be interested in seeing those numbers.
How does racism impact potential relationships between Black women and members of the Italian community? There seems to have been historically some push and pull between the Italians and the Black folks. I mean, I've seen what was that? There was this series, Bumpy something in Harlem, where he was dealing with the Italians for drugs and all this other stuff. And, I love mob movies. One of my favorites is The Godfather. I think it's everybody's favorite. Like, if you don't love The Godfather 1 and 2, we don't speak of Godfather 3. That never happened. But in both of those, you can see that there's little elements of little casual racism when it comes to Black people. It's there, right?
It's there more. I think it's more a reflection of America still than Italy. There is some racism in Italy, but I think that the mob movies are more about people who came over in the again in the 20s and things. When my grandfather came over from Sicily, he was friends with mobsters. Some of his really, really close friends ended up in Chicago. My grandpa ended up in St. Louis. He did not want, he just didn't have it in him to be a killer. But when they got in trouble up in Chicago, they'd come down to his house as a safe house.
Oh, wow.
My dad grew up with mobster, there's Uncle Tony down there. And,
oh my
gosh. He's going to be staying with us for a few days.
Oh my gosh. So that was really a thing.
It's a thing. Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. But you got to remember, these, people came over as immigrants looking to make their way in a new land, and they surveyed the culture and had to determine what's the pecking order, who's on top and who's on bottom, and they just joined in with the boys.
Yeah, they were just trying to survive, trying to figure out, because that's kind of human nature, is that we need to figure out where we fit. It's important for each human to know where they are and where they fit in.
Yeah. I've kind of.
But so now that you guys are now honorary white, because before you guys weren't considered white, now y'all are considered white, because whatever. So you guys are white now. What's it like for you? Because you have dated Black women before. Is it is it something that's deliberate? Do you look for, say, I want to date a Black woman, or is it that you'll be swiping, and if it just happens to be. So is it strategic versus serendipitous?
Well, it's hard to answer, and I'm trying to, give it a fair answer in the context of trying to assume other Italian men's mind. I can really only talk about my own. And I am more attracted to dark-skinned people, period. So there's that. But at the end of the day, what I'm really looking for in that person as a potential mate is more an alignment in values, and person, like vibe between us, chemistry, etc. And for that, I'm somewhat colorblind. I mean, the mother of my 4 kids is Swedish. She doesn't have a stitch of black in her, and I loved her dearly. I still love her for who she is. As the mother of my kids. So tough question to answer. The package is a little less important to me personally, and for other people, it is probably more important to the extent they're really living in the cultural voice that talks about color and that sort of thing. Then that's their lot. I'm doing my best to graduate from all that.
So, but does it bother you? Like if you, say you're out somewhere and you're with a date who's black, and maybe, I don't know, somebody looks at you a little bit too long. Maybe it's a woman who's like, what's he doing with her? Or, like whatever. Does it make you feel a kind of way?
It's never happened.
Really?
It's never happened, and maybe it's because once they take a look at her and take a look at me, they think, I better just keep my mouth
right, because you're like, I don't know if you guys can see him, but he's like, you wouldn't just pick a fight with him.
For everybody's sake. Fighting's no
it's
fun,
like you might want to just rethink that. You want to rethink that one.
Yeah.
So, but I think that it could be because you do have a presence and you're strong and you're a big guy, or could it just be that you're in Southern California, and is it like is an East Coast Franco dating an East Coast Franco different than a West Coast Franco?
Absolutely.
Really? Okay, let's talk about this.
100%.
Okay.
I lived in New York for a while. Spent a lot of time in Jersey, and the guys there are much more of the caricature of the Sopranos, kind of street guy. 100%. They embody it. It's a thing, and they're tough. I would not want to mess with an Italian from the wrong Italian crew from Jersey or Philly or Chicago, any of those areas, New York. Forget about it.
Forget about it. Maybe
they're way tougher than the guys on the West Coast.
Is there still that clannishness? Yeah. So I think that maybe there's a clannishness and I think that there might even be maybe some casual, because it's like, but maybe it's different. I guess what I'm saying is it different for women to enter into those type of situation as an outsider? Is it easier, say, as a black woman going into a situation where she's with East Coast Franco to be better accepted versus the other way around where it's a man trying to be accepted into that culture, vice versa? Like, how does that work? Is it still the same, or is it easier for maybe the men with a woman who's Italian, or is it easier for the woman not to be Italian?
It would be much easier for a black woman who is on the arm of Franco in Jersey than a black man to come in and date Franco's sister.
Really?
Oh, Yes.
Okay, do tell. This is
yes.
juicy. I knew we were going to get to some juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so explain this. Because this
there's
like
still a lot of I mean, I say still. It's 2023, so I
almost
haven't been-
2024.
Yeah, almost 2024. So things have changed, thank God, I think a lot in the last 20 years. My kids grew up in a world that's completely different framework and reference point than the world I grew up in. Thank God. I mean, the way that, it was psychologically set up for me as a kid, with various races, all the different races, they were, immediately pigeonholed as to how they were, feminism, gay, all that stuff. It was tightly drawn boxes. Today, it's completely fluid. My kids don't even think about
mine either. They don't think about this.
Gayness, blackness. They're just like, sometimes they hear references between me and my brothers, and they're like, Dad, like what? Like, oh, whatever. It's something I heard from my dad.
Right. It's like, sorry, it's an Archie Bunker moment.
Yeah.
So you're saying that because for a woman it'll be easier because of that.
It's probably to do with power dynamics. It's like,
because a woman is being received into this patriarchy, whereas the man is taking the woman out and kind of going under his
it's like
covering and away from the family.
It's still in the traditional, Italian American or traditional setup at all here in America. It's still about the patriarchy, and so you don't question the fact that Franco's got some hot little number who's black. You just say, well, that's Franco's girl.
Yeah, because that's the man's prerogative. If that's what he wants to bring home a black girl, he gets to bring home a black girl. Yeah. That's it, right?
But Franco's little sister, he wants to get married to a powerful man within the clan, not from outside the clan. God forbid somebody, who's on, the traditional lower end of the socioeconomic, racial ladder or whatever. And that, that sentiment, I gotta believe, exists still.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we try to break that ladder down as best we can, but it's going to take another generation.
Yeah.
When my kids have kids, the world will be a better place.
Definitely.
And old dudes like me are long gone.
No, it's like people who of our parents' generation and the generation before, they need to just hurry up and go ahead and die.
Yeah.
Just give it unclench your racist grip from society. And let's just figure this stuff out and date who we want to date and be who we want to be with, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
that's that. And it's funny, because I think about my dad, jolly Sicilian. He looked like the Godfather. He had the map of Italy on his face. And he grew up in a world in St. Louis where in August, he would get dark enough, he would get on a bus, and they made him sit in the back of the bus.
Wow.
He would go to a movie theater, and he had to buy the tickets that put you upstairs with the dark folks. He couldn't sit with the general population.
Wow.
And nonetheless, he had kind of racist. I wouldn't call him a racist exactly, but it was like built into his languaging. It's just the way the world set up was defined by the Irish. Oh, those fucking potato eaters.
Right.
Like what? Oh, no. Like, really?
Great topics. Thank you, Frank. I think that after this, there's a lot more insight in dating Italian men. I guess maybe you'll be going out on a date with some black chick sooner than later.
Hopefully, from your mouth to God's ears.
Comment about racial tensions between Italians and blacks. You don't have to have watched The Godfather or Jungle Fever to know that there have been some tense times between Italians and blacks through the decades, in particularly New York. We know that they were competing for territories, competing for higher minority status. that we know that some of them had some pretty bigoted ideas about Black people. It's something to consider when you're thinking about dating an Italian man, because you're not going to be just dating him. Chances are you're going to be dating his entire family. These people are very clannish. But if you get the right one who is open, who is welcoming, and his family is open and welcoming, definitely, I would say go for it. If he's the kind of man you want, but make sure that you get these essential conversations out of the way first, because chances are you're going to be at a lot of family dinners, you're going to be at a lot of events, and you want to make sure that the family is welcoming. I can say from my own personal experience that Italians and Italian Americans have been nothing but welcoming and wonderful and complimentary to me. I do, however, understand that there are people who have had different types of experiences, and I want to acknowledge and give space for that as well. I know that recently, especially in Italy, there have been some tensions with particularly immigrants from African countries when it comes to Italians there. I don't think it affects us much here in the United States, but the remnants of jockeying for position for a higher minority status are probably still present. Italians weren't always considered what we would call white in this country and had to fight for that position. Now they consider themselves white in this country. So that means that chances are you might come across some bigotry. You might come across some people who say insensitive things. Be prepared for that, but talk to your partner first. Make sure that he understands your concerns. As an Italian man, they are often very protective of the people that they love. So chances are he's going to give a listening ear, and he's going to be active in protecting you if he loves you. Don't just dismiss outright. Make sure that you have a chance to get to know him and get to know his family and have an open heart and an open mind. It sounds like from the interview and just what I know about Italian people, there's a lot that Black people have in common if we just lay down the barriers and focus on those things. So what did you guys think? What do you guys think of dating Italian men? What do you think of this archetype? And please, in the comments below, let me know which archetype you'd like for me to cover next. I'm leaning towards Jewish, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe.